Started. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining. And special thanks to our chief guest, Mr.Jesusundaramaran, for joining and spending his time today. And yeah, I'm really happy, excited for this program. I work with artists all day long, but I'm not an artist. But yeah, when I work with them, I feel really happy and inspired. And Mr. Jesu is also a IT professional like me, but he spends a lot of his time actually creating stuff. So I'm happy to have him today and share his thoughts. I see some unfamiliar names. I think some of you are new to ETHEL Foundation. So let me very quickly talk about ETHEL Foundation so that if you're curious, you can know more about it. So ETHEL Foundation is a nonprofit based in the US, and we primarily deal with youngsters, right? So youngsters of first generation Tamil kids. And what we do several projects. One of them is doing learning sessions like this, where they get to learn about either creative things or technical things, whatever they're interested in. Typically, our young volunteers are mostly in the high school, middle school ages, right? Some of them are in college, but this is the majority. And so we provide learning opportunities like this, and we also provide opportunities for them to create content. So some of them have taken animation workshops through our foundation, and they create animated videos. And some of them, so a lot of the work is also translating the content, right? Creating original content can be very hard. It takes a lot of years practice and skill, but often we can also contribute by translating. So we take high quality educational content and then convert them from English to Tamil and vice versa, right? So one example is we helped translate Khan Academy website from English to Tamil. So that speaks to the other purpose, which is a lot of what we do is targeted towards their counterparts in India, Tamil-speaking kids, often in underprivileged rural environments, right? So we want to help them empower themselves through education. So yeah, a lot of our work involves translating from English to Tamil. They also translate a lot of creative work, including, for example, Mr. Jesu's story, CP. So some of the volunteers here, they actually translated. We'll get to hear from them a little bit later in the program, what they thought of the story and the translation process and so on. And the latest thing we are trying to do is also getting these kids involved directly with the kids in India, right? That's through our spoken English program, where these two worlds contact each other, right? So they teach them English through online classes during the weekday nights. And that way, kids in India, they improve their English skills, and kids here, they improve their Tamil skills. That's kind of like a dual benefit, right? So here are some of the programs that we do. You can go to the website, ethelfoundation.org, to learn more about it. It's online. So most of what we do is all online, so people can join from anywhere. If you're interested, yeah, check it out and join us. So that's about ETHEL. Today's program is going to be all run by our teen volunteers. So I'm going to unmute myself and be silent, and I'll invite the MC for today, Sushmita, to take it from here.
Thank you, Koti Uncle. Hi, everyone. My name is Sushmita, and I'm from Sacramento, California. To start the session, I'm first going to go over today's agenda with you all. First, we are going to begin with hearing a tirukkural. Then we are going to give everyone an introduction for today's chief guest. Once he finishes sharing his presentation, you will all be able to ask him any questions you have. Then we will hear some students' thoughts on our chief guest's story, Sippy. After that, we will give you all a descriptive overview about ETHEL's creative writing competition. Finally, we will present our vote of thanks. I would now like to pass it over to Dia, who will be reciting a tirukkural and explaining what it means.
Hi, my name is Dia, and the tirukkural I've chosen today is Tottane Thurum Manarkeni, Mandarku Katrane Thurum Arivu. This means water will flow from a well in the sand in proportion to the depth to which it is dug, just like how knowledge will flow from a man in proportion to his learning. So make use of all the opportunities like this workshop to gain more knowledge.
All right, thank you, Dia. I would now like to pass it off to Neha, who will now give an introduction to today's chief guest.
Mr. Jesusundaramaran is from San Ramon, California, United States of America, and has been working in the IT and healthcare industry for about 20 years. He is originally from Chennai and went to Loyola College, Chennai, for his undergraduate studies. He has deep interest and expertise in creative endeavors such as story writing, blogging, and filmmaking. He has produced and has been involved in various filmmaking projects, including feature film, short film, and documentary. He blogs at myearthu.link. He frequently participates in Tamil literature-related public speaking events with famous celebrities such as Mr. Salman Papaya. He is one of the founders and organizers of the Nagiran Mandra Guru in the Bay Area, where they conduct literary debate programs for the public. Mr. Jesu is the author of the short story Sippy, which was published in the book Trove, an anthology of Tamil short stories by Fetna this year. It is notable that Ethel Foundation volunteers contributed to the English translation of this story. On behalf of Ethel Foundation, I welcome Mr. Jesu to our program today and thank him for sharing his knowledge with us.
Thank you, Neha. Now I would like to invite Mr. Jesusundaramaran to speak with you all today.
Thank you so much. First of all, thanks, Leon, and thanks, everyone. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Okay, nice. So I'll start with my experience, and then I have one slide to share with you all, and then we move on to the questionnaire. So before I start saying anything, how many of you write letters? One. Anyone else? Have you written any letters to anybody? Two. Okay, good. So nice. Vijay also, Neha, Sushmita, and Kyle. Oh, okay, good. So let me start with how I get into this writing. So when I was in hostel from my 4th grade till my college. So I used to write letters to my dad, to my brothers and sisters. The more you start writing letters, and you start reading the letters come from your family, there are all the stories, right? My dad writes all the problems in family through letters. And then I return back, how things are in school and hostels, things like that. And then whenever I go to my home for a holiday, I have a neighbor who is a news agent. He gets all the newspapers, magazines, and then he'll be like agent to sell it. So most of this stuff won't be sold. So he will keep all of them. He dumped in a backyard, like some small hut. So whenever I go to my home for a holiday, I just go to that hut. If I go in the morning, I'll come in the evening only, because there are so many books, all sorts of books. Now, comic, kids story, serious literature, you name it, all the books were there. So somewhat I was fascinated or attracted towards that books. So I started reading so many. That is how I got into this. So basically, what all the great writers are saying, if you want to be a creative writer or a story writer, you have to be a reader. Start early reading. The more you read, one day you'll end up writing, because the all the things goes in has to come out one day. So the more you read, it's going to come out in your writing. So that's what they say. You have to read, and then you'll become a writer one day. I did my master's in Milwaukee. So one of my professor, Douglas, he gives online assignment and we need to submit in online. I submitted my online assignment at the end of the year, my graduation. I still have this email. He wrote an email, respond to my assignment. He said, one day, they asked, Beethoven, the symphony musician, right? They asked him, how did you write so many symphonies? And he replied, you start with the bang and you end with the bang. In between, whatever you do, people don't understand. So that is the dialogue he told me for my assignment, that you start with the bang, you end with the bang, but in between, I have no idea what you're saying. So, so that's how I say a lot of things. Sometimes it makes sense, it doesn't make sense, but I still have that email. When you want to write anything, you start simple. Just start with simple. I know we will have so many ideas, so many things, but you just start writing very simple things, and then you get into the actual story, or any types of, whether it's a fiction or real events or historic, anything. So you start with the simple thing. So that's how, and from my childhood, I wanted to be a film director. I don't want to be in any of this profession, but unfortunately I couldn't. What happened was, I did my both masters, and then I came to LA for a job in 2006. And I was thinking, okay, all along I've been saying that I want to be a film producer, a film director. So there is a Hollywood here. Why don't I try something? So I did my 6 months diploma in filming in Hollywood. So that is a time I learned so much in that 6 months, because the background or the way we come raised in India and the way we think for the stories or filmmaking. But when I come here, and those 6 months, the way they taught us, from the scratch, in the sense like how you start with the treatment for a story and the screenwriting, and then and how you film it, lighting, everything they covered. So that was one good learning for me. Then I slowly, seriously started trying few things, short films, documentaries. I have written my own stories, the full script also, about white tiger, but I couldn't I couldn't sell it. But most of my friends says that they say that it's a good story. But in 2012 there was a movie came, Life of Pi. It's about white tiger. But my script was in 2010 itself. But these two are two different stories. My story is totally different, and Life of Pi is totally different. But since it's a white tiger, they say, hey, it's already, people will say that there is another movie in white tiger. So, but one day I'm going to make that movie. It's for kids. It's a very it has a fantasy come real, how the tigers, they have some unique characters. And so that story is still in my mind. I have written it's in the paper also. So that 6 months of time period made me to think seriously into this creative side. Though still I'm struggling with my family and friends. Most of them say don't do it because it's tough. But I'm still carrying forward. I don't know how far I'll go, but I started getting into the serious mode after learning from Hollywood. So that's my little bit background about this whole thing, how I came into. So the writing, I didn't write a story as such until 3-4 years back. I wrote short stories, documentaries, short films, and then script writing. But story as such, I haven't tried anything. But then I started writing 3-4 years back. I wrote so like 4, 6, 7 stories so far. But Chippy, it's called Chippy actually, but it's translated as a Chippy, Chippy, but that's fine. Chippy is nothing but the pearl and the shell, right? The shell is called Chippy in Tamil. You guys know Chippy? So I named as Chippy because Chippy is my pet cockatiel. So before I come to so I started. That is my first story. Chippy was my first story. And I gave that story to 4 or 5 friends, to read and give me the feedback. My first question was, did you guys understand what I'm trying to say in this whole thing? Most of them said, no, we have got it. It's like it has a good structure, and a lot of feedback came, and I incorporated those feedback. My elder brother gave very constructive feedback, and then I incorporated, and so many friends gave me. And then 3 or 4 times I rewrite that letter. I mean the story, and then I submitted. But so far I wrote so many 6 or 7 stories, but I didn't get the satisfaction of, okay, yes, this is the one. But somewhat I got a little bit of satisfaction in Chippy. The reason being, when I read back, I thought, okay, this has a good structure and there is something to say it, all that. But still, I'm not a great writer. I'm still in the process of learning, like you guys. So I haven't got the satisfaction of, okay, this is the one story. Yes, I made it. I know that satisfaction I haven't got it so far, but I'm going towards that goal one day, hopefully. So most of the time, how I got this idea of writing Chippy, right? Let me tell you that. So, in Google, when you type what is, it gives you a lot of options, right? What is tree, what is home, this and that. One day I was typing, is there, it gave a lot of options. And one of the option was, is there a ghost, right? So I saw that, and then I thought, okay, why don't I take this as a theme for my story, and then start thinking and writing a story. Is there a ghost, right? That's a very simple question everyone has in this world, right? So if you look at it, human beings around the world are same. You know why? We look different, but our emotions, the questions that we get, the way we think, most of them are 100% same. So we can connect globally. Like, for example, is there a God or is there a ghost? It's a universal question. So I thought, okay, why don't I take this simple thing and then I start writing a story around it. So that is when I was started thinking, and then it's going in my mind for 2-3 days. So while I'm talking, I'm going to tell you how this whole structure of story writing is going to be. That's why I'm giving this example. I'll share the slide at the end, so you'll see how we covered all of them. So I was going through in my mind for 3-4 days how to. So who am I going to say this story? Like, who are the audience for this story? I was thinking, right? So I thought, okay, this story is for kids. So I decided my audience are going to be kids, but obviously adults can read because every adult has a kid inside. So if I write a story for kids, of course adults will read it. And then what is the story? So okay, the theme is there a ghost? So okay, what I'm going to say in this? So and then I decided why I'm going to say this story, because this question arises from my childhood, and every kid has that question. So let's explore, what are is there really a ghost, and see what the what the literature is saying, what the science is saying, what the the biggest, like Aristotle, Plato, what they talked about this whole thing. So why don't I bring them in this story? That's what I decided, why I'm telling the story. And then time and place is another important factor, when and where it's happening. So I decided, okay, it's going to be a conversation between me and my daughter. Imagine like that, a conversation between a daughter and a father, dad. And then why don't I do that? And then how I'm going to say the story, it's a conversation. So basically what I'm saying is, whose story you are telling, yaruடைய story, I mean, யாருக்காக சொல்ல போறீங்க, யாருடைய story சொல்ல போறீங்க, என்ன story. So these are the structures basically. This I didn't find this, but it fall in place when I started thinking about this. So And then I decided, okay, it's going to be a conversation between a daughter and dad. And then um, when you when you start saying things, you need to add more details, and then you need to have a conflict, because life is full of conflicts and questions and fears. If you bring fears, conflicts, and questions into the story, that is when it makes the story interesting. If everything is happy, we don't need a stories, right? Now, if everybody is happy in the world, if everything goes fine, then there is no story to say. All the stories, if you look at it, there is a conflict, or there is a fear, or there is a question, or there is an emotion. So I thought, okay, so let's bring some conversation into it, and there is a conflict in the story, and then how this ghost thing is going to connect with that conflict. And I end that a question mark, saying that is this a really a ghost or not? So that's how I planned when I but I started writing, because sometimes when you think, you'll be keep thinking, you won't know, you won't write it. So it's very, very tough. If you sit and start writing, then let's have a first version, let's see what comes, and then you change it, and then you rewrite. Then finally you give to your friends or your close relatives to get the feedback, and then incorporate it, and then make a final version. So that's how I wrote this story, Chippy. And I wrote a lot of other stories, like the 4 or 5 stories. I want to write a story which is around US landscape. There are a lot of things I can say back in India, like in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, all those things, but there are thousands of writers already doing that. But I want to write a life in US, how the cultural difference, how the conflict in this time period between our new generation, between our generation and our parents, things like that. And then also how this day-to-day life events challenges. So I want to write those things, for kids and for adults and everybody. So that's the idea. So I'm started writing it. So let me share one small slide, and let's see, how will I share this. um okay, so are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this is what I was earlier I was going through. So whose story you are telling, first of all? So let's first find out. um you know let's say yesterday, you all know, I think yesterday, day before yesterday, there was IT glitch happened. There was an issue with all Windows systems, and there were a lot of flights got delayed because of that, and so many computers got impacted, right? So I'm just started thinking, why don't I write a story with that incident? you know that just sparked something. Okay, what happened if let's say in a hospital, there is a doctor who is doing some surgery or something, while and then suddenly this whole glitch happened, that because of that there is an impact to the patient and the whole thing. I was just started thinking, why don't I use this incident, or how I can bring this incident into my story. So like that, you can also think on a day-to-day life. Like if something happens, you can say, okay, can I write this into my story, with your own experience in your home, school, with the friends, the conversation that you have with your friends, all that. So whose story you are telling is first thing, and the next one is, what is the story? Now, that's what I was saying. Okay, the story is about in terms of Chippy, the story is about, is there a ghost? That's the theme. That why I'm saying this, I want to see what are the options that we can explore in this subject, And I want to say this to the kids, and also see how that can connect in our day-to-day life, that brings our conflicts or emotions outside, and then explore that side of it, and also some fear that you might have, and then time and place, when and where it's happening within the household, a conversation. How will you say the stories like conversation? It's not a single narrative. There are different types of the way of saying the stories. You like most of the time, if you look at it in mythology or in old days, the story will start, somebody is saying the story to someone else. A grandma is saying a story to a granddaughter, or a guru is saying the story to his disciple, things like that. So that is one way of narrating, and there is a single point of view, and then there are like multiple characters. You can bring multiple point of view also. That's kind of little bit advanced, but when you can start with single narrative, like your point of view, or take a third person point of view. You can write a story like that. So in this case, I wrote as if my point of view as a dad, a conversation between daughter. So so that's how you can structure your format your story. These five things are a basic. It's kind of, I mean, the whole process is totally different. Each one will follow different process. I don't want to say it's like this is the set of process that we can definitely follow. It's nothing like that, because I've listened to so many story writers, and Salman Rushdie's interviews, and Margaret, she's one of the great creative writer. So all of them are saying different things. So there is no set defined process. Each one will have their own process, but I would say the process would be, once you have the idea in your mind, and then you decide who are all the characters. Make it very simple, like 3 or 4 characters in the beginning, or even 2-3 characters. Don't have to go many characters. Just make it very simple, and then start writing. Put down the pen and paper, start writing. Whatever comes to your mind, just write it. Because if you keep thinking, you will never write it. So you start. Okay, Kyle has raised hand.
Hi, I just had a question.
Mm-hmm.
நீங்க எழுந்தப்போ வந்து உங்களுக்கு எப்பயாவது ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா இருக்கும் அந்த டாபிக் எடுக்க, ஆனா எழுத ஆரம்பிச்சா ரொம்ப ஹார்டா இருக்கு ஸ்டாப் பண்ண?
டெஃபினட்டா அதுக்கு வரேன் நான். சூப்பர் கொஸ்டின், ஆக்சுவலா நல்ல கொஸ்டின். ஸோ அந்த 2வது கதை ஒன்று எழுதுனேன் நான். அந்த கதை what that story is, when I went to India, like whenever you go to India, you will have drivers, right? Different drivers you to take places, right? You meet different driver, car drivers. So I had experience with multiple drivers, and then I came back here, and I started writing a story with that theme. While I was thinking, but then once I start writing, it became very tough, and then I give a pause, 1 day, 2 days, and then again I went back and I started thinking that it gives, sometimes when I take a walk, or sometimes when I take a shower, I get a lot of different ideas, and sometimes it will pop, okay, I can start with this way. So, or sometimes you'll say, no, that's not the right thing. So but when I start writing, that particular story is kind of twofold. One is the conversation between a driver and the person who is in the US, and there is underlying another thread will be going between the driver's flashback story. So there are two folds I had in that story. So it was a little difficult for me to merge them, where the connect will be, right? So I had a issue in that. So I had to rewrite and then go back, and still I'm not satisfied with that story. I'm going to rewrite that again. I had that story in my blog also, but I'm going to rewrite. So yes, I had that, Kyle. So maybe when we have a question and answer session, I'll answer all your questions. Let me complete this, and then we'll come back to your questions. Okay.
Thank you.
So the time and place is, since this particular story is a conversation, so I thought it's in a household. But if you are like in the other story that I told you, adu vandu between US and India, that when during the vacation time. I have other things, like for example that white tiger story. It's going to go back in like 90s, 1900, because there is a flashback how that white tiger is related to this boy, things like that. So there will be like the times, it will span across 2 different centuries, that story, because I need to give the proper justification. What is the link between that white tiger and the guy or the boy who is in current time period? And usually the white tigers are not around the place where he lived, right? So I need to give a justification for that. So there are the time and place I need to decide accordingly. So when you write a story, let's say you want to write a story about your travel to India, and then you come back here, so you can say, okay, the time period is this, and then the place it's in the story is taking place in India as well as in US where you live. So you can decide that way and then write a story. So how will you tell a story? As I think I was talking about that, like the narration, the single point of view, or 2-3 point of view, or third person point of view. There are so many ways you can tell a story. You can go back and the flashback and you say a story. Even like when I was a kid, right? Let me tell you this very interesting. People said this interesting. So when I was a kid, for me, everybody, all adults look very monsters. Like all of them are big. So they talk so many things. They won't allow us to come in between their conversation. They'll say, hey, go inside. We'll say, I don't know what they're talking. So I used to think all of them are like monsters. All of them are so big. And from that kid's perspective, if I write a story, let's say like a 3-year-old boy, I'll bring that thought process into the story, like how I used to think these big adults were, and what they are doing. They were very secretive. They are not sharing things with us, and we don't understand why they are doing what they are saying, all that. So those things you can write in your own words. It will be very interesting if you start writing things like that. So, but now when I grew, like even my daughter was saying one day, look at the tiny baby. I told her that you were like that one day. So that when we grow up, we look at things in a different perspective, different way. You just bring that into your stories. How you think, how you used to think, how the things have changed now. And when you write a story about a boy or a girl, and you have to go into their shoes, in how they will think. If a boy or a girl is in Tamil Nadu or India or in North India or somewhere, and you need to bring that surroundings and emotions. But if a boy or girl in US, that too in California or in Midwest or East Coast, you need to bring that situations, that atmosphere into your stories. Then if you start adding these details, like when you say, so how will you tell a story, then it will be more authentic, and people will say, okay, it is, I think it happened to me also. So you need to add more authentic, realistic events in your story, so that people can connect to your emotions, to your story. So that's how you will tell a story. And then the details, when you write the details, that is where we will have issues, at least in my experience. How much detail should we add for a story, right? Once you start adding, then you'll never end. You'll be keep adding. So you should know, okay, for this character, like for example, if you are writing a story about a dad who is a IT person, but he is more into his you know um, kind of creative side. So then when you write about that particular person, when you write his room, you need to give us such a details that he has his own big laptops, and he has a shelf with the books, and then he has some what do you call the sticky notes for his ideas, things like that. So you need to give him the character's detail, like how that character is going to be. Same way, if you are talking about your mom, uh, who is executive in a profession, but at the same time she is a very good singer. For her leisure time she goes and performs music. Then when you write about her, you have to give the detail of her characters, and then the room, the atmosphere accordingly, right? So once you define a character, rest all will fall automatically. Let's say you are writing about a cop, but that cop is a role, right? A person can play a cop role, a judge role, or a lawyer role. But what is the characteristic of that role, right? That cop is a guy who wants to be a comedian, but unfortunately, he's not. So when you write about that cop character, he takes everything in a very humoristic way. That is how you need to write in his character, because though his role is a cop, but inside he want to be a comedian all the time, but he couldn't do it. So now he's a cop, but whenever he look at things, whenever he talks to people, he is very jovial. He makes a lot of fun, jokes. So you have to sketch his character like that. So automatically it will fall. Okay, this guy, if follow the stand-up comedy in TV. Like for example, this guy is sitting and watching a stand-up comedy in Netflix. That is when a person is coming inside the room and talking. That is how that you can write the character about. So once you define the role, and then you see what kind of character that person is having. Even if you are writing a story about a teacher, what kind of a teacher is a mathematician, or is a science teacher, or is a PE teacher? So you all know, you have experience with multiple teachers in your schools, right? So you can pick one of your teacher's character and then write it. you know so that's how you start writing, practicing it. And also, if a person is a musician, what kind of a music he plays, right? Is a soft, or is a country guy, country music, rock music, things like that. So that is a detail you will give you. Once you define the character and the role on the character, that will give you the how far you can go to give the details of that character. And then what are you doing with that character? That is when I said a conflict. You have to have a conflict in a story, right? Though is a comedian, but he is having a conflict with his boss for some reason, or what kind of reason it could be. Maybe if the boss is saying he's not focusing his job because he's all the time is taking things very lightly, he's not very serious, you are not fit for a cop. That could be the conflict between the cop and his boss. And then how he or the boss resolve this whole conflict. Sometimes you don't have to resolve it. You have to end with the big conflict and what is the impact to it. Sometimes you can resolve that with another third point of view, saying to the boss or to him, okay, maybe there is a transformation from him, that he realized at one point, okay, this is my job, I cannot be a comedian anymore, I have to be a serious cop. Maybe there is a point where he transformed from this to this, right? Or he says, okay, one day, I know what I'm going to be, this is a, because he feels a conflict between his actual character and the job that he's playing. So he decides, okay, I'm going to quit, I'll go and try as a comedian and I'll succeed. So that is, once you have the conflict, you have to say, okay, what that conflict is bringing in, like, is it going to be resolved, or is going to make a transformation, or what kind of it is. So, but most of the time when I write a story for kids, I include Tirukural also, because I think you guys started with Tirukural. In Chippy also, I give a reference to a Tirukural, because if you want to write a story, there's one tip that I can give you. Take one simple Tirukural, think about that Tirukural, and start writing a story around it. There are a lot of tirukkurals that you can really write a story. So that is another tip that you guys can try. And another thing I would say, that don't be shy for writing anything. Write whatever comes to your mind. Start writing. Don't think what this will say, parents will say, or friends will say, all that. For every story, I'm telling you, there is group of people who are waiting to hear that story. You know, for every type of a story, we may not like. I may not like a fiction, or I may not like a historic story, but there is a set of people, there are a group is waiting for that story. So start writing. Don't be shy. So take one small Tirukkural and start writing. There was one day, there was a debate competition in Tamil, and there was a 9-year-old, a ninth grade girl was not prepared for that, but she came and started speaking. The topic for her was very strong topic, but she couldn't prepare well. But there was a one point she brought a chemistry subject about a chemical reaction to that debate. Then I told her that I don't know whether you'll be a successful debater or not, or speaker, but I think you have a good thought process, because you're bringing chemistry reaction into this one. You have a very good idea. So why don't you write that idea as a story, or as a katurai? After 3 months, she wrote that. She wrote a story with how that chemical reaction is into her real life event. It was a nice story, actually. So you might get ideas sometimes. You might think, okay, this is very simple. I don't think that's a great idea. All that, nothing like that. Being simple is very tough. Writing a simple story is really, really tough. So if you think anything is very simple, it's a special. So whenever you get any simple ideas, I would say just start writing. And once you start writing, then you will explore what kind of writer you are, what kind of process that you follow. So that's what I would suggest. I think so I want to give you one. I don't know whether you are able to see this book. Are you able to see the book? No. How will I change? How will I show this book? Let me see. Let me change this. 1 minute. Okay, there you go. I think you'll be able to see it now. Okay, how about now? Are you able to see it now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you able to read the title?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would recommend this book. So this book is The Artistic Way, a Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity. Okay. This is one of the famous book. I mean, generally I don't follow, because each one has their own way of suggesting something. But if you are serious, you want to really learn about writing, note this down. I'll also send this detail to Leon. You'll share that details. So this book has exercise for 12 weeks. Okay. If you're really serious, if you follow that, I'm 100% sure end of that book, you will write one story for sure. I can guarantee you that, because it gives you how a human being can think and practice few techniques that will make you as a creative writer. It's a proven one. And I did not write this and start writing a story. I wrote a story and then I started reading this book, but it really helped me. So one of the things that book says, when you get up in the morning, I don't know whether it's easy for you guys because you have schools, you have assignments and things like that. But when you get up in the morning, write 3 pages. It's nothing. You write whatever comes to your mind. Write about what happened yesterday. Write about what you are planning to do today. Something you have to write 3 pages on a daily basis. But they'll give you the tips how to do that also. And once you follow, and there are different techniques that they give. So that really helps as a writer. And you will be a successful writer one day if you follow that book. A lot of Hollywood writers also suggested this, and they also follow this. So please do that. I think with that, I think I can take any question and answer. Hope it helps you guys. I'll share that slide also with you. Okay, any questions?
Yes, Kyle.
நீங்க சொன்னீங்க நீங்க வந்து இந்த டாபிக் வந்து ஹார்டா இருக்கும் ஆனா நீங்க எழுதணும்னா ஸ்டாப் பண்ண முடியாதுன்னு. Can you tell me some of the books or stories that you wrote that were next to this concept?
Last part என்னமா திருப்பி கேளு.
Any of the books in the topic தட்ல ஆனா வந்து எழுதணும்னு நிறுத்த முடியலன்னு ஏதாவது புக் இருக்கான்னு நீங்க எழுதுனது?
எழுதின உடனே நிறுத்த முடியல அப்படின்னா எக்ஸ்கியூஸ் மீ. ஸோ நான் எப்படி எழுதுவேன்னு சொல்றேன். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வந்து நான் பேப்பர்ல தான் நிறைய எழுதுவேன். அதுக்கப்புறம் அதை வந்து நான் டிஜிட்டலா கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணுவேன். ஸோ நான் என்ன பண்ணுவேன் அப்படின்னா, I would have showed my writing pad and thing. I'll bring that. I'll give me a minute. I'll show that also. ஸோ நான் நிறைய எழுதிடுவேன். எனக்கு மைண்ட்ல வர்றது எல்லாத்தையும் ஃபுல்லா பேப்பர்ல ஃபுல்லா எழுதிட்டே இருப்பேன் நான். அதுக்கப்புறம் அதை நான் வந்து ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் பண்ணுவேன் ஸ்டோரியா. லைக் நிறைய எழுதுவேன் இந்த சென்ஸ் அந்த டாபிக் சம்பந்தமா தான் எழுதுவேன். ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள், ஒரு நியூ ரிலேஷன்ஷிப், ஒருத்தவங்க புதுசா நம்ம பாக்குறோம், அவங்களுக்கு கூட ஒரு பழக்கம் ஏற்படுது அப்படின்னு, அவங்களுக்கு ஒரு பேக்ரவுண்ட் இருக்கு, நமக்கு ஒரு பேக்ரவுண்ட் இருக்கு அப்படின்னு நம்ம ஒரு ஸ்டோரி எழுதுறோம்னா, அப்ப அதுல வந்து நான் டீடைல்ஸ் வந்து எனக்கு மைண்ட்ல வர்றது எல்லாத்தையும் எழுதிட்டே இருப்பேன் நான். லைக் as a conversation between them, whatever conversation happening between them, I'll start writing. I don't put any full stop. அதுக்கப்புறம் நான் அதை ஸ்டோரியா கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணும்போது, சரி இது போதும், இது வேண்டாம், இது வந்து இந்த ஸ்டோரிக்கு இட்ஸ் தேவையில்லாத விஷயம், இந்த ஸ்டோரிக்கு இவ்வளவுதான் போதும் அப்படின்றத நான் அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் அதை வந்து நான் எடிட் பண்ணுவேன். ஸோ அதனால என்ன, நம்மளோட தாட் ப்ராசஸ் சம்டைம்ஸ் வி ஷுட் நாட் ஸ்டாப் இட், வில் ஸ்டார்ட் ரைட்டிங் எவ்ரிதிங். அப்புறமா அதுல இருந்து நம்ம தேவையானதை மட்டும் எடிட் பண்ணிக்கலாம். ஸோ அதுதான் நான் பண்ணுவேன். சொல்லுமா சுஷ்மிதா.
ஹலோ. நான் என்னோட கொஸ்டின் என்னன்னா, நீங்க எழுதும் போது என்னைக்காச்சும் லைக் ஸ்டக்கா இருக்கீங்களா? லைக் ரைட்டர்ஸ் பிளாக் மாதிரி.
நிறைய
அது
தடவை
நீங்க கடந்து எப்படி வருவீங்க?
நிறைய தடவை ஈவன் இந்த சிப்பி எழுதும் போதே நான் நிறைய ஸ்டக் ஆனேன். ஏன்னா நமக்கு வந்து ஒரு டவுட் வந்துடும் எழுதிட்டு இருக்கும்போது, இது ஐயோ சரியில்லையே அப்படின்னு. அப்புறம் இன்னொன்று வந்து நமக்கே திஸ் வில் நாட் பி சாட்டிஸ்ஃபைட். ஸோ நான் ஸ்டாப் பண்ணிடுவேன். ஸ்டாப் பண்ணிட்டு as I said, ரைட், மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் டைம் எனக்கு வந்து நான் ஏதாவது ஒரு வாக் போனேன்னா எனக்கு வந்து ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்காக வேற ஏதாவது தாட் வரும். இல்லை அப்படின்னா ஷவர்ல இருக்கும்போது எனக்கு தாட்ஸ் நிறைய வரும், காலையில எந்திரிச்சு குளிக்கும் போது. சம்டைம்ஸ் அதை பிரேக் பண்ணிட்டு ஒரு 2-3 டேஸ் கழிச்சு திருப்பி படிப்பேன். அந்த நம்ம எழுதுறத படிக்கும்போது நமக்கே தோணும் இது ரொம்ப கேவலமா இருக்கு, இது வேண்டாம் அப்படின்னு எடுத்து வச்சுட்டு தென் ஐ வில் ஸ்டார்ட் ஃப்ரெஷ். அப்படி இல்லை அப்படின்னா இந்த ஏற்கனவே நான் சொன்னல ஒரு 2-3 வருஷம் நான் எழுதுவேன், பேப்பர்ல எழுதிட்டே இருப்பேன் இல்லையா, இதுல இருந்து ஒரு 2 பேராகிராஃப் இதுக்கு சரியா வருது அப்படின்ட்டு அதையும் இதையும் கம்பைன் பண்ணுவேன். அப்புறம் வந்து சம்டைம்ஸ் வந்து எழுதி முடிச்சு வச்சதுக்கு அப்புறம் ரேஷனலா சில நேரங்களில் நம்ம திங்க் பண்ண வேண்டியது இருக்கும். ஏன்னா நம்ம பிரெயின் நம்மளே ஏமாத்தணும் சில நேரங்கள்ல. ஓகே இது சரியில்லை அப்படின்லாம். ஸோ வி ஹாவ் டு பி லிட்டில் பிட் ரேஷனலா இருக்கணும் அந்த இடத்துல. அப்போ வந்து நான் சரி இந்த ஸ்டோரி கரெக்டா லாஜிக்கலா இதுதான் சொல்ல வருது, அதனால இது கரெக்டா தான் இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு நம்ம அதை கண்டினியூ பண்ணுவேன் நான். ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி பிளாக்ஸ் நிறைய தடவை வந்திருக்கு. அது வெரி நார்மல். சில நேரங்களில் ஒரு வாரம்லாம் கூட அதை பத்தி யோசிக்காமலாம் இருந்திருக்கேன். ஒரு ஒன் வீக் 2 வீக்ஸ் கூட யோசிக்காம இருந்திருக்கேன். சடனா தோணும், டக்குன்னு உட்காந்து எழுத ஆரம்பிச்சிருவேன். ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி இருந்திருக்கு. அது ஹேப்பன்ஸ் ஆக்சுவலா. அதுல இன்னொரு ரீசன் என்னன்னா, சம்டைம்ஸ் எழுதுனதே திருப்பி எழுதும் போது நமக்கே அதே அதுக்குள்ளே இருக்கிற மாதிரி இருக்கும். ஸோ நம்ம மைண்ட் ஒரு பவுண்டரிக்குள்ள இருக்கிற மாதிரி இருக்கனால ஓப்பன் அப் ஆகாது மைண்ட். ஸோ அதனால அதை பிரேக் பண்ணிட்டு தென் ஐ வில் ஸ்டார்ட் அகைன். ஸோ யா.
தேங்க்யூ.
Oh, and you mentioned, I like how you mentioned that sometimes when you were younger and you had the perspectives of the adults being like monsters, and that sometimes you would incorporate it into your writing. I just want to know what other personal experiences of yours have ever inspired you when writing your stories, even Chippy, for example.
Yeah, so when I was in 5th grade, there was a cyclone. So what happened was, it is that story is there in my blog also, but that is not a full story. I just wrote a little bit. So I was going to the 3rd floor to துணி எல்லாம் காய போட்டுருப்போம்ல மொட்டை மாடியில, அது வந்து ஹாஸ்டல். ஸோ நாங்க வந்து போய் எங்க துணி எடுத்துட்டு வரணும். ஸோ நான் ஓடி போயிட்டு துணி எடுக்கலான்னு 3rd ஃப்ளோர் போனேன். அந்த மொட்டை மாடி ஓப்பன் பண்ணும்போது ஒரு இரும்பு கதவு, அயன் டோர். அந்த சைக்ளோன்ல அந்த காத்துல வந்து அது டம்முன்னு வந்து இப்படி இடிச்சுது இந்த இடத்துல. எனக்கு இடிச்சு ரத்தம் வர ஆரம்பிச்சது. யாரும் இல்லை, நான் மட்டும் தான் இருக்கிறேன். ஸோ எல்லாரும் கீழே இருக்கிறாங்க. நோ சிஸ்டர்ஸ் தான், சிஸ்டர் கான்வென்ட், அது யாருமே இல்லை. நான் இப்படி கையை பிடிச்சிட்டே போய் அந்த துணியை எடுத்துட்டு வரும்போது நான் வந்து எங்க இதுல இருந்து பார்த்தா கடல் தெரியும், மெரினா பீச் மாதிரி கடல் பெருசா தெரியும். அதுல வந்து தே ரைஸ் அ ஃபிளாக், ரெட் ஃபிளாக், பிகாஸ் இட்ஸ் அ சைக்ளோன், ரெட் ஃபிளாக். அதை நான் அடிக்கடி அங்கிருந்து அதான் பார்ப்பேன். அந்த ஃபிளாக் இருக்கு. நான் கையை பிடிச்சிட்டு கீழே வந்துதான் 2nd ஃப்ளோர் வரும்போது அப்புறம் அங்க ஒரு கிராண்ட்மா இருப்பாங்க, அவங்க சரி பண்ணி விட்டாங்க. அப்ப என் பாக்கெட்ல வந்து எங்க அப்பா எழுதின லெட்டர் இருந்தது. அந்த லெட்டர் தான் நான் எப்போதும் படிச்சுட்டு கீழே வந்து, அந்த லெட்டர்ல எங்க அப்பா எப்போதும் என்ன எழுதுவாருன்னா, பாரதியார் பத்தி, திருக்குறள் பத்தி, திருவள்ளுவர் பத்தி எல்லாம் நிறைய எழுதுவார். இஸ் அ டீச்சர். அப்ப அந்த லெட்டர்ல அன்னைக்கு வந்து இந்திரா காந்தின்னு ஒரு பிரைம் மினிஸ்டர் இருந்தாங்க யூஎஸ்ல, இந்தியால. அவங்கள பத்தி எழுதியிருந்தார். அந்த லெட்டரை பாக்கெட்ல வச்சிருந்தேன். நான் கீழே வந்தேன். கீழே வந்து நான் ஈவினிங், அது ஆக்சுவலா ஒரு 7:30 எங்களுக்கு வந்து குட் நைட் ப்ரேயர் சொல்லுவாங்க. அதுக்கப்புறம் நீங்க தூங்க போயிடணும், இன்னும் பேசக்கூடாது. ஸோ அந்த குட் நைட் ப்ரேயருக்கு எல்லாரும் பெல் அடிச்சு வர சொன்னும் போது அந்த எங்களுடைய ஹெட்மிஸ் சிஸ்டர் வந்து அனௌன்ஸ் பண்றாங்க, இந்த மாதிரி இந்திரா காந்தி வந்து இறந்துட்டாங்க பிகாஸ் ஆஃப் ஷூட்டிங். இந்த லெட்டர்ல எங்க அப்பா இந்திரா காந்தி பத்தி எழுதியிருந்தாரு. ஒரு எனக்கு இன்ஸ்பிரேஷனுக்கு சொல்றதுக்காக. அவர் வந்து ஏன்னா நேரு வந்து இந்திரா காந்தியுடைய அப்பா. அவரு வந்து பிரிசன்ல இருக்கும்போது அவங்க மகளுக்கு எழுதின கடிதத்தெல்லாம் எங்க அப்பா ரெஃபரன்ஸ் பண்ணி எனக்கு இந்த கடிதத்துல எழுதியிருந்தாரு. அதை படிச்சுட்டு நான் இந்த இதுல கீழே வர்றேன், அவங்க அப்பா இதை சொல்றாங்க. ஸோ இது வந்து என் மைண்ட்ல இருந்தது ரொம்ப காலமா. இட் இஸ் தேர் இன் மை மைண்ட். அதை ஒரு ஸ்டோரியா எழுதணும் அப்படின்னு நான் நினைச்சேன். அப்ப நான் இந்த இது அதுல எழுதியிருக்கேன் ஆக்சுவலா. ஆனா எனக்கு அந்த அடிப்பட்டதுல அந்த ஸ்டோரியில நான் கொண்டு வரல. இதுதான் சொன்ன, அந்த டீட்டெயிலுக்கு அது தேவையில்லை அப்படின்ற போது. ஏன்னா இஃப் த ஸ்டோரி இஸ் அபவுட் அ பாய் ஹூ இஸ் பீங் அலோன், who is longing for love, then I can write that detail. But this story is about Indira Gandhi as a character, central character in that story. So this is, and in the detail தேவையில்ல அந்த இடத்துல. அதான் அதுல எழுதல. பட் மற்ற எல்லா டீட்டெயிலும் நான் அதில் எழுதியிருப்பேன் ஆக்சுவலா. அதை கொண்டு வந்து அந்த கடிதத்தோட கொண்டு வந்து நான் லிங்க் பண்ணியிருப்பேன். அந்த கடிதத்தையும் இந்த கடிதத்தையும் வந்து லிங்க் பண்ணியிருப்பேன். அதாவது நேரு வந்து இந்திரா காந்திக்கு எழுதின கடிதத்தையும் எங்க அப்பா எனக்கு எழுதின கடிதத்தையும் நான் வந்து லிங்க் பண்ணியிருப்பேன் அந்த ஸ்டோரியில. ஸோ தட்ஸ் ஹவ் நீ கேட்ட கேள்விக்கு ஹோப்ஃபுல்லி அது ஆன்சர் பண்ணிட்டேன்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
ஆமா ஆமா, தேங்க்யூ.
தியா சொல்லுமா.
நானும் நிறைய ஸ்டோரிஸ் படிச்சிருக்கேன். எல்லா ஸ்டோரிஸ்லயும் ஆல்வேஸ் லைக் பாசிட்டிவ் எண்டிங் இருக்கும். லைக் த குட் பர்சன் வின்ஸ். லைக் இஸ் தேர் a story like is it possible like it's a negative ending?
யா ஸோ அது ஒரு டஃப்பான கொஸ்டின் தான். இன்ஃபேக்ட் வந்து இதே மாதிரியான ஒரு டிஸ்கஷன் எனக்கும் என்னுடைய நண்பர் ஒருத்தருக்காரு ரவி அப்படின்னு சென்னையில. இதை எப்போதும் என்கிட்ட கேட்பாரு, நீங்க ஏன் நிறைய படங்கள்லயும் நிறைய ஸ்டோரிலையும் எல்லாரும் ஏன் இப்படியே எழுதுறீங்க, ஏன் ஒரு நெகட்டிவா ஒரு இதோட இருக்கக்கூடாது, ரியல் லைஃப்ல அப்படிதானே இருக்கு அப்படின்னு கேட்பாரு. அது இருக்கலாம், நெகட்டிவ் எண்டிங்கோட நெகட்டிவோட ஒன்று இருக்கலாம், ஏன்னா லைஃப் இஸ் அபவுட் போத். ஆனா என்ன அப்படின்னா அதுக்கு ஒரு ஜஸ்டிபிகேஷனோட நம்ம சொல்லிட்டோம் அப்படின்னா தென் இட் இஸ் ஓகே. சரியா? இப்போ ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ஒரு பையன் இப்போ அவன் வந்து லைக் when he is like 40 years old வச்சுப்போமே, அவருக்கு வந்து சில ஃபியர்ஸ் அண்ட் சில கான்ஃபிளிக்ட் மனசுக்குள்ள இருக்குது. ஓகே, ஆனா அதை வெளிக்காட்டுற தருணங்கள் அவருக்கு இல்லை. ஆனா அட் ஒன் பாயிண்ட் அது வெளி வந்துருச்சு அப்படின்றதோட நம்ம முடிக்கலாம். ஆனா அந்த நெகட்டிவ் ஷேடுக்கான ஒரு பேக் ட்ராப் நீங்க ஜஸ்டிஃபை பண்ற மாதிரி இருக்கணும் அந்த கேரக்டர். ஏன் அப்படி இருந்தது, எதனால அந்த கேரக்டர் இப்படி பண்ணுச்சு அப்படின்ற ஒரு ஜஸ்டிஃபிகேஷனோட நீங்க சொன்னீங்கன்னா, கன்வின்சிங்கா இருந்தீங்கன்னா தட்ஸ் ஓகே. அதுல ஒன்றும் இது இல்லை, சொல்லலாம். ஒன்லி எல்லாமே ரோசியா இருக்கணும்னு அவசியம் இல்லை. அதானே இப்ப நீ கேட்கிட்ட வந்த, எல்லாமே அப்படி இருக்கணுமா அப்படின்ட்டு.
ஓகே, thank you.
ஜாரா.
நானும் என்னோட நண்பர்கள் வந்து ஒரு ஸ்டோரி எழுதிட்டு இருக்கிறோம். அதுல நம்ம we want to like make sure like we want to make it like kind of original, like not copying other ideas. How do you like make sure that, because there are a lot of stories and some of our story like ideas itself are kind of like copying other stories, so we've kind of like shared it again and again. How do you make sure that the stories you're making are original? Like you said, your like white tiger story.
Yes, correct. So so that's a fantasy story. So the detailing comes, that is when the detailing is very important. எப்படி வந்து ஒரு ஒரிஜினலா ஒரு அத்தன்டிக்கா அந்த ஸ்டோரியை கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணணும்னா அந்த டீடைலிங்ல தான் இருக்குது ஆக்சுவலா. ஏன்னா நம்ம எல்லாருமே ஜூக்கு போறோம், நம்ம எல்லாருமே டைகரை பார்த்துருப்போம், லயனை பார்த்துருப்போம், எல்லாரும் எல்லா விதமான அனிமல்ஸும் பார்த்துருப்போம். பட் ஹவு வி கனெக்ட், நம்மளுடைய எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ்ல அது என்னவா இருக்குது, இல்ல நம்ம பார்த்த விஷயங்கள்ல வந்து நம்ம வந்து அதை வந்து எப்படி ஒரு நமக்கான எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸா கன்வெர்ட் பண்ண முடியும் அப்படின்றது தான் அதுக்கான டீடைலிங் கொடுத்து, எந்த அளவுக்கு நீங்க அதை பத்தியும் தெரிஞ்சிருக்கும் இருக்கணும். இப்போ டைகரை பத்தி நான் எழுதுறேன் அப்படின்னா அட்லீஸ்ட் ஐ ஷுட் நோ டைகருடைய கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக்ஸ் ஓரளவுக்குனாச்சும் தெரிஞ்சு வச்சிருக்கணும். உதாரணத்துக்கு இந்த டைகருடைய இது சொல்றேன், ஒரு இம்பார்ட்டன்டான கேரக்டர் என்னன்னு சொல்றேன். டைகர்ஸ் ஆர் வெரி ஷை அனிமல்ஸ். அவங்க வந்து தே ஆர் நாட் வெரி எக்ஸ்ட்ரோவர்ட். டைகர்ஸ் வெரி இன்ட்ரோவர்ட் அனிமல். அது ரொம்ப ஷையான ஒரு அனிமல். நீங்க ஒரு காட்டுக்குள்ள போயிட்டு ஒரு டைகரை பாக்குறீங்க அப்படின்னா அதுக்கு முன்னாடியே உங்களை அந்த டைகர் பார்த்துருக்குன்னு அர்த்தம். ஏன்னா நீங்க டைகருடைய கண்ணில் தப்பிக்கவே முடியாது. அதனுடைய டெரிட்டரிக்குள்ள நீங்க போயிட்டீங்க அப்படின்னா, நீங்க டைகரை பார்த்துட்டு டைகர் நான் பார்த்துட்டேன்னு நீங்க சொன்னீங்க அப்படின்னா அதுக்கு முன்னாடியே அது உங்களை பார்த்துருச்சு, இல்லைன்னா அது உங்க கண்ணிலே படாது ஆக்சுவலா. அந்த மாதிரி ரொம்ப நுவான்சஸ், அந்த இன்டர்கசிஸ் எல்லாம் இருக்கு. அந்த டைகருடைய குணங்கள் என்ன அப்படின்றதெல்லாம் நீங்க ஓரளவுக்கு டீடைலிங் பண்ணணும். ஸோ உங்க ஸ்டோரியில, நீங்க எழுதுற ஸ்டோரியில அந்த மெயின் கேரக்டர்ஸ் என்னவோ இல்லாட்டி அதனுடைய அட்மாஸ்பியர் என்னவோ அதை என்ன எழுதுறீங்களோ அதுல ஒரு ஓரளவுக்கு டீடைலிங் நீங்க கொண்டு வந்தீங்க அப்படின்னா படிக்கிறவங்களுக்கும் அது புதுசாகவும் இருக்கணும், அதே சமயம் அது அத்தன்டிக்காகவும் இருக்கும். அப்ப அவங்கள ஒரிஜினலா அதை ஃபீல் பண்ணுவாங்க.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think
Any
we are
other
running a
question?
little bit over time. This is okay. Can we stay a little bit more?
Yeah, that கேள்வி இருந்தா definitely.
Yeah, so there's maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Sure.
Yes, கேளுங்க சரவணன்.
வணக்கம் கொட்லம்பு, வணக்கம் ஜேசு.
வணக்கம்.
சாரி, எனக்கு ஒரு டவுட் இருந்தது, அதனாலதான் நான் வந்து குழந்தைங்க செஷன்ல பேரண்ட்ஸ் கொஸ்டின் கேட்கலாமான்னு கேட்டேன். First of all, thank you so much. It's great to have you. We have been watching you from Chippy times, and it's great to read all the stories and the blog. எனக்கு வந்து மெயின் கொஸ்டின் என்னன்னா, இட்ஸ் அபவுட் the creative edge of the students versus monetizing the creative edge. So from when we were in our childhood, we had a big conflict. Like, we used to read poems, we used to read Tirukkural, Bharadiyar, Bharatidasan, and Vairamuthu, and then all that. And then we started writing and reading a lot. And then we lost all of them, and then we got into the rat race, right? So how do we make sure the next generation don't run into the same problem and they keep their passion and still, it's a little tricky question, but still, what's your thoughts on still maintaining the passion and somewhere on the monetizing part of it?
Yeah, இது என்னுடைய பர்சனல்ல இருந்து நான் சொல்றேன். There was a saying for a graduationக்கு ஒரு saying ஒருத்தர் சொன்னாரு, என்னன்னா, education is a dress rehearsal that you are wearing for your life அப்படின்னு. இப்போ என்னன்னா, நம்ம ரேட் ரேஸ் நீங்க சொன்னீங்க இல்லையா, அது எல்லாமே வந்து அந்த மாதிரிதான் போயிட்டு இருக்கு. ஆனா நான் என்னுடைய பர்சனல் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ்ல லிட்ரேச்சர் நம்ம படிக்கிறோம்னு வச்சுங்களேன், ஒரு லிட்ரேச்சர் படிச்சா அப்படின்னோம்னா, இட் கிவ்ஸ் யூ டிஃப்ரெண்ட் பெர்ஸ்பெக்டிவ் அபவுட் லைஃப். ஆக்சுவலா நம்ம குழந்தைங்க வந்து the more and more they read literature, any literature, it's not like only Tamil literature they have to read, even Russian literature, Latin American literature, நான் எல்லாமே படிப்பேன் ஓரளவுக்கு கொஞ்சம். Any literature if you start reading, that will give you different perspective about life. So அது வந்து ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்காவே அந்த குழந்தைங்களுக்கு வந்து it will lead them to the right path. டெஃபினட்டா நம்ம லைஃபுக்கு வந்து சஸ்டைன் ஆகுறதுக்கு நமக்கு பொருளாதார சிக்கல்கள் இருக்குது, அதை தவிர்க்கவே முடியாது, அது நம்ம இல்லைன்னு சொல்லவே முடியாது. பட் இந்த பெர்ஸ்பெக்டிவ் உங்ககிட்ட இருந்ததுன்னா that will take you for heights ஆக்சுவலா. ஸோ அதனால என்னக்கு தெரிஞ்சு அந்த ஃபயரை வந்து நீங்க இது பண்ணாம வச்சுக்கணும் அப்படின்னா, you have to read நிறைய நல்ல புத்தகங்கள் படிக்கணும், நல்ல படங்கள் பார்க்கணும். நல்ல படங்கள் நிறைய இருக்கு. அது
பேரண்ட்ஸ்க்கு நிறைய ஒரு அவேர்னஸ் இருக்கணும் இல்லையா, அவங்க வந்து force them in one direction that will give them more money in terms of financial settlement. அந்த மாதிரி இல்லாம they also need to have a passion, and if the passion is on writing or reading, we should let them to do it.
டெஃபினட். ஆக்சுவலா இன்னொன்னு சொன்னேன், அந்த டிபேட் இருக்கு இல்லையா, நக்கீர பட்டிமன்ற குழு, நான் கிட்ஸுக்கு வந்து எப்போதும் அவங்க பேரண்ட்ஸுக்கு என்ன சொல்லுவேன்னா, இன்னும் ஒரு 10 yearsல நீங்க யூஎஸ்ல வந்து நல்ல தமிழ் பேசுற இளைஞர்கள் கம்மி. அவங்களுக்கு ஒரு ஸ்டேஜ் இருக்கு. ஆக்சுவலா நீங்க நல்ல தமிழ் பேசுனீங்கன்னு வச்சுங்களேன், நல்ல மேடை தமிழ் பேசுற குழந்தைங்க வளர அவங்க அதை செகண்ட் ப்ரொஃபஷனாவே எடுத்து பண்ணலாம். அதை நிறைய மேடைகள் இருக்கு, அவங்களுக்கு பேசுறதுக்கான தேவை இருக்கு, ஆனா ஆட்கள் இருக்க மாட்டாங்க. நல்லா யோசிச்சு பாத்தீங்கன்னா. சோ அதை வந்து நம்ம பேரண்ட்ஸ் தொடர்ந்து சொல்லும் போது தான் இப்ப கொஞ்சம் 2-3 பேரண்ட்ஸ் ஆமா கரெக்ட் தான் நீங்க சொல்றதுன்ற ஓரளவுக்குனாச்சும் அவங்க யோசிக்கிறாங்க. அப்ப நம்ம அந்த மாதிரி குழந்தைங்களுக்கு எக்ஸாம்பிள், அதுக்குதான் நான் என்ன சொல்லுவேன்னா, அந்த மாதிரி பெரிய வெட்டினா மாதிரி இது நான் என்ன சொல்லுவேன்னா, நீங்க வந்து இந்த குழந்தைங்களுக்கு வந்து பெரிய ஸ்டேஜ் கொடுங்க. அதை வந்து நம்ம எப்போதும் ஒரு ஐக்கியம் நீங்க உருவாக்குனாதான் பின்னாடி வர ஜென்ரேஷன் அதை ஃபாலோ பண்ணுவாங்க ஆக்சுவலா. ஸோ அப்ப நான் என்ன சொல்லியிருக்கேன்னா, அவங்களுக்கு ஒரு ஸ்டேஜை கொடுங்க. அப்ப அது மூலமா வர குழந்தைங்க, ஓ நமக்கு இப்படி ஒரு வெளி இருக்குன்னு தெரியணும்ல, இருந்தா தானே அவங்களும் பேரண்ட்ஸும் ட்ரை பண்ணுவாங்க. ஸோ அது எல்லாரும் சேர்ந்து தான் பண்ணணும். ஆனா இப்ப வந்து என்ன பொறுத்த வரைக்கும், இஃப் யூ ஆர் ரியலி கிரியேட்டிவ் யூ கேன் மேக் மணி. எனக்கு அதுல எதுவும் டவுட்டுமே கிடையாது. நீங்க உண்மையிலேயே உங்களுடைய நல்ல ஒரு ப்ராடக்ட் உங்களுக்கு கிரியேட்டிவிட்டியில இருக்குதுன்னா, அது ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா அவருக்கு லியானுக்கு தெரியும், அது நல்லா செல் பண்ணலாம் இந்த காலகட்டத்துல. ஓவராலா நான் ஒரு விஷயம் சொல்ல மறந்துட்டேன், இந்த ஹோல் ஸ்டோரி டெல்லிங்ல there should be some truth to your story. அது பாட்டம் லைன் ஆக்சுவலா. ஏன்னா அது மட்டும் தான் அந்த ஸ்டோரியை வந்து கன்வின்சிங்கா மாத்தும். ஸோ ஜஸ்ட் கீப் தட் இன் மைண்ட். ஸோ
Thank you so much, and really I would like to highlight the way you connect Tirukkural, so thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
So that's a great lesson for the kids and adults. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And வேற adult, I think ஹரி இருக்காருன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். அவர் தான் வந்து இந்த சிப்பி படம் இந்த ஸ்டோரி டிரான்ஸ்லேட் பண்ண டீம் adult.
Oh, okay.
வரான்னு தெரியல. Oh, maybe he left. Okay. Oh, there.
Yeah. நல்லா இருந்தது. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஹாஃப் நல்லா கேட்கல. ஜெசு பேசுறது
உங்க வாய்ஸ் சரியா கேட்கல ஹரி.
பிரேக் ஆகுது ஹரி. சாரி.
ஓகே. சாரி. கண்டினியூ.
Okay. All right. Sari, Sushmita, let's maybe carry on with the rest of the program. Thank you, Jesu.
Thanks, Leon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jesu, for your wonderful presentation.
Thank
Now
you.
let's move on to talk all about Mr. Jesu's short story, Chippy. Chippy was translated by 8 volunteers from Tamil to English. This story was published in the book Trove by Fetna this year. I would now like to pass it over to Akash, who read and translated this story.
Thank you, Sushmita. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Akash Kumar, and I'm going to be talking about my experience translating Sippy. Sippy is a short story written by Mr. Jesusundaramaran about a girl named Venba and her family, consisting of her mother, Gode, her father, Selvin, and their pet cockatiel, Sippy. The story revolves around the assumption made by Venba about there being a ghost present in their house, as anytime Sippy was in a specific room, he would begin to panic and flutter his wings rapidly in a sense of fear. Personally, I liked this story as it was unique and well written. Also really liked translating the story from Tamil to English, as it was fun and an overall good experience to go through trial and error with my group. I also think it was a better way to understand the story thoroughly, while also helping out the community by translating it into a language others understood as well. What made the experience easier was being able to talk to other kids if I had a doubt or question. My group consisted of 3 to 5 teens and an adult volunteer. Our group's adult volunteer was Mr. Hurry, and with his help and the rest of my group, we finished translating the story even though we only met once a week. It was a wonderful story and even more fun to translate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Akash.
Yeah, thank you, Akash. Now we're going to hear from Vijay, another EDA volunteer who read and translated Chippy.
Thank you, Sushmita. Hello, everybody. My name is Vijay Saravanan, and I'm a volunteer in the EDO Foundation. Overall, I had a very good experience in writing this story. I translated this story from Tamil to English with my group, with excellent guidance from Hari Uncle. After reading this thoughtful and super interesting story, I instantly had a motivation to translate the full story to English. When reading the story, I noticed that Mr. Jesusundaramaran touches upon different situations and emotions of an immigrant family in this story. Some of the intricate details he described, including the interreligious marriages, families involved in social drinking on a kid's birthday, Venba's drunk dad Selvin, perspectives of gods and ghosts, and covered the smart thinking and inquisitive nature of Venba, a teenage girl. Another awesome fact about Sippy is the author connects all these philosophies with the Tirukkural. It's amazing to see how the author linked the alcohol drinking habit as a ghost. It's a key takeaway for the readers and mainly the youth. I had a very good learning experience in translating the story because it helped me learn tons of new words and helped me become even more fluent in Tamil. I thank the entire Beadle Foundation for giving me this precious opportunity of translating the story. Thank you, Mr. Cortolongo, for giving me the chance to share my thoughts about the story. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks, Vijay. Excellent.
Thank you, Vijay. Now we're going to learn all about Ethel's story writing competition from Shamikta.
Thank you, Sushmita. So, next slide, please. Thank you. So, for the creative writing competition, you are required to write a short story based on a Tirukkural of your choice. For example, the Kamugu story by the famous writer Savi. Next slide. Okay, yeah. The requirements are simple. The story length just needs to be from 1,000 to 2,000 words. You can submit more than one story. Your stories can either be in Tamil or English. And the competition is open to both adults and kids, and it will be for separate prize categories. The criteria just requires you to be creative. It needs to be an original piece. You can take inspiration from other works, of course, but at the end of the day, it needs to come from you. and it also needs to relate to your chosen Tirukkural, and the literary style and the language needs to be appropriate. I also want to take this opportunity to talk about the art competition. So participants can create up to 5 illustrations per story. Some of the mediums that are allowed are hand-drawn illustrations and digital tools, including generative AI. There is a continuity requirement, and all the illustrations in the submission must have a consistent style, a theme to it, and character design. And again, it's open to both kids and adults. So the stories you can pick from to illustrate are Kamugu, Sippi by our chief guest, and Epri Kumar. And again, the criteria, it just needs to be creative. We want to see fresh and distinct ideas, and it needs to clearly represent the story plot lines and the scenes. And for the artistic styles, it just needs to be aesthetic, and you can feel free to use any techniques in your illustrations. So the last day to submit registration is actually July 15th, but Kotalanga uncle, can they still submit it if they want to, or register for it if they want to?
Can still submit it, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, so the last day to submit your entries would be August 15th, and the award ceremony is on September 15th. And I will put the link to sign up in the chat. Yeah, thank you.
Nice. If you need any help, let me know. I'll help you to write this.
All right, thank you, Shamikta, for that insightful overview. To finish off today's amazing session, I will now pass it over to Dia, who will now present our vote of thanks.
Hi, everyone. Before we conclude today's workshop, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone involved in this program. To begin with, a big thank you to our chief guest, Mr.Jesusundaramaran, for taking the time to share his valuable insight and help us in our creative writing journeys. In addition, I'd like to thank the student volunteers, Shushmita, Neha, Akash, Vijay, and Shamikta for participating in and helping run the workshop today. Your contributions were greatly appreciated. I also extend this thanks to Rupa Auntie and Kotulian Uncle for their efforts in organizing this workshop. And finally, a warm thank you to each and every one of you who made time in your busy schedules to attend. Thank you.
Let me take a 1 minute. So thank you so much, Leon. I get inspiration from Kotulango Leon. He is a great achiever, but he's very quiet. That's what I like about him. Is also very down to earth and very simple human being, which I always inspired by that nature actually. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much, guys, all the participants. Thank you so much for joining today. It was my pleasure to talk to you guys. So it is an opportunity for me also to explore and also share my thoughts with you guys. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all. Yeah, thank you, Jesu. Thank you all the teen volunteers and help another. Thanks everybody who joined. And especially, Mr. Jesu Pating. Like, he's not a professional writer, right? He's not a professional writer. He works in, IT industry, but he's just very passionate about it. He's interested and he puts in the effort and the time, and he is constantly learning, as you can see, right? So it's an inspiration for all of us, whatever be your interest, right? Whether it's creative writing or art or whatever, it's a perfect example of how if you just put your time and effort, you can do it. So thank you for inspiring, Jesu.
Thank you so much. Thanks.